we've been talking about how geopolitics have come to the fore. We saw the balloon incident being shut down in the U.S. As well as in Canada. I'm just wondering, how is that incident impacting trade relations between Canada and China at a time when Canada wants to mend bilateral ties?
Well, we were here in the region. I was, in fact, I spent about 11 times here in the region over the course of the last number of months. And as part of that, we launched Canada's Indo-Pacific strategy. And there we laid out a pretty comprehensive plan for how we will work in the region. Diversification is a very important part, which is why I'm here in Singapore with our Canada trade mission. But you know, in our relationship with China, it's multifaceted. We will stand up for the values that are important to Canadians, those values of you know, rules-based trade, those values of democracy, the values of, you know, standing up for human rights. But at the same time, we can collaborate on areas like climate change. You saw that in COP15. We had that in Canada at the end of last year. It was China's presidency. They couldn't have it. So we had in Canada. So being able to collaborate in areas like fighting climate is what we're going to do. But it is a multifaceted relationship, and it is one that that Canada takes seriously.
Will such incidents accelerate reshoring in countries like Canada, Mexico, the U.S.? What's your own assessment? What are you seeing right now? What are you hearing from companies?
Well, companies certainly have experienced the shocks of supply chain disruptions throughout the pandemic, and that continues. Some of it has, you know, some of it has started working its way out. But for Canadian companies, it's looking to grow and diversify into regions like this one here in the Indo-Pacific. Here in Singapore, I've got about 175 companies and organizations who are here to launch our trade mission, and what they're looking for is they're looking for markets to be able to grow in, collaborations with those where we have trade agreements, and to continue to pursue those opportunities. And I'm very excited because here in Singapore, we've got the Canadian Trade Gateway that's going to access this very, very dynamic region. And what companies are looking for, like the CEO roundtable I had yesterday, are the ability for us as government to bring them together and to find those opportunities and to convene those opportunities for them, particularly for small and medium-sized businesses, because in Canada, I'm the trade minister, but also the small business minister. So helping our businesses get here and to attract that investment from the Indo-Pacific region into Canada. And really,
what areas in particular? Are we talking about digital, for instance?
Absolutely digital, absolutely any of the sectors that are important to the green growth. I mean, you're seeing in Canada a real building out and investment in our battery ecosystem. We have strong critical minerals in Canada that is going to be a very important part of what the future of our economy, our green economy, is going to be. We've got aerospace here. We've got digital that is here in the region. We've got a dynamic number of clean tech companies that are, if you look at sustainable mining, you've got water solutions and clean solutions that are a part of that particular value chain. And I think Canada and Canadian companies in innovation in particular are really contributing to that kind of value chain growth.
You talk about value chain. We have to talk about supply chains as well. We're marking the first year milestone of the Ukraine war, which have caused a lot of disruptions into the supply chains. How are you assessing whether those log jams have been eased or could possibly be accelerated?
Well, on Ukraine, let me just share with your audience, as well as those back home. I mean, Canada has steadfastly stood with Ukraine in their fight against this unjustified war perpetrated to them by Russia. We're going to continue to do that. And what we are seeing is that we are seeing disruptions around the world caused by this war, whether it's food prices or energy prices. Canada has been working with its partners to and with the business community to ensure that we are doing everything we possibly can. Diversification is a very good example of this. I mean, looking for those partners, tighten up some of those partnerships so that we can, in fact, ease up some of those issues.
There are concerns that China's reopening might make those supply chains even more complicated. And what's your own assessment? Is China's reopening a boon or a bane?
Well, I think that the good part to this is that that the issues of COVID and the disruptions that are related to COVID is something that we are all tackling and moving in the road of recovery from that. So I think that that is a positive thing. But look, Canadian companies certainly have seen the disruptions that have been caused by that. And I think what you're seeing are the ability to find more resiliency in those partnerships here in the region, but also in North America and in Europe for Canadian companies.
India will be hosting the G20 this week and a meeting of finance ministers as well as central bank governors. The U.S. is expected to push for WTO reforms. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, Canada is the chair of the Ottawa Group. So we have a really dynamic group of countries that we're working with, that we've been, whether it's Singapore, Australia, New Zealand, the UK, the European Union, and we are working on WTO reform. And in particular, an area of focus is bringing some certainty to the dispute settlement system. We contributed quite heavily in the lead up and then the multilateral successful negotiations in MC12. We're looking forward to continuing to do that work. I was just in Geneva just a couple of months ago. To do a WTO ministerial meeting and to work again with colleagues around the world to make sure that we have a rules-based international order and trading system that will be beneficial to trading countries like Canada.
Minister, before we let you go, just one final question on CPTPP. Of course, China's as well as Taiwan's membership is causing quite a stir, a lot of debate. Can we see China being a member of CPTPP, given the likes of Australia have said that, you know what, unlikely?
Well, the CPTPP agreement is a high standard agreement. And what we're working on right now is an accession with the United Kingdom. That work continues. What I would say is that CPTPP for Canada and for our partners is the maintenance of those high standards on labor, those high standards on the environment, and to look at the track record of how any aspirant economy does their trade. So for us, rules-based trade is really important. The high standards that are in the agreement are really important. And right now, we're looking forward to working with the United Kingdom on their accession. And this is the first accession partner, so that work continues.